everyone, and a very warm welcome to the first episode in our new podcast series at Idwal, Questions Over Coffee. This will be an in-depth technical podcast that investigates some of the key areas that ship owners, investors, and others face in today's evolving industry. My name is Paul Howe, and I will be your host today and in the episodes to come. So today I'm joined by John Nicholson, Head of Technical, and Scott Mitchell, Technical Development Officer at Idwal, and today we'll be talking all things SIRE. So first of all, welcome both. Great to have you on. Do you mind telling us a little bit about your backgrounds and how the technical team operates within Idwal? We'll start with you, Scott.
Yep. Hi, I'm Scott Mitchell, Idwal's Technical Development Officer. I've most recently sailed as an engineering officer for Stena Bulk on oil and product tankers, mainly in their VLCC and Suezmax fleets, and I have over 10 years experience working at sea. I came ashore and started with Idwal in November 2022 as a technical officer, at that time responsible for carrying out inspections in person and remotely, along with reviewing and QCing reports submitted by our surveyors prior to them being issued to the client. I was promoted to Technical Development Officer in January 2024. This was a newly created role, kind of dedicated to creating, maintaining and refining Idwal's products that we offer. And this also includes the management of our own main Idwal checklist. And that's kind of largely how I've been heavily involved in the creation of our SIRE 2.0 product that we're going to talk about today.
Fantastic. Great to have you on. And John?
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, I'm John Nicholson, head of the technical team at Idwal, which is a team that currently consists of 15 ex-seafarers, all of which are from different various backgrounds, who are primarily based in our UK office, as am I. I'm an ex-seafarer, just like Scott, and a qualified master. I spent the seagoing part of my career with Maersk on their container ships and in their offshore fleet. I've been at Idwal for 7 years now, since 2018, and my main areas of responsibility here at Idwal is creating the technical content of the products, along with Scott here, ensuring that Idwal are producing technically accurate and detailed inspection reports that meet the demands of our clients, constantly developing and progressing the Idwal grade, providing advice, guidance both internally and externally, and also attending vessel inspections in the UK and around Western Europe when we need to. In regards to the technical team and how they work, Paul, as I said, it's made up of 15 people currently in the technical team, and their main role is to review everything that our surveyors do as a kind of quality assurance role before it gets released to the client. And this is where Idwal have gained a reputation for being a detailed and technically accurate service provider.
Amazing. Thank you both. So today's podcast is going to take the form of a Q&A session. Recently, we have contacted some of our key partners, and we've asked them and worked with them to submit some of their questions around SIRE, the requirements, and specifically how to optimize the outcome of these extremely important inspections. So to kick things off, Scott, I'll pass on the first question to you. How have SIRE requirements evolved in recent years, and what challenges are they presenting for ship owners and operators?
Yep, sure. So kind of SIRE 2.0, it's mainly really been developed by the oil companies' International Marine Forum, the OCIMF, with the intent to expand the scope and depth of their SIRE inspections. At the same time, they've overhauled the way that they gather and present the data from those inspections. It's also been developed in a way which allows their SIRE inspectors to report more in depth and provides a kind of more comprehensive assessment of a vessel's condition and the quality of their crew. The inspectors now also complete the checklist using a tablet. The previous SIRE format was based on quite a rigid checklist style, so vessels generally could prepare for the full scope, knowing what questions were going to be asked. kind of traditionally the vessel staff tied up the inspector for large portions of the inspection, kind of sometimes 2 to 3 hours, could even be more. That was just spent reviewing certification and paperwork and had a lesser focus on the actual condition of the vessel. This isn't possible anymore with the new format, as it's essentially kind of introduced a pre-screening of vessel certification in the form of a pre-inspection questionnaire, which they refer to as the PIQ. In addition to that, there's now more stringent requirements regarding the harmonised vessel particulars questionnaire, which is known in the industry as the HVPQ. Really, essentially, SIRE 2.0 has just introduced a lot more unpredictability to SIRE inspections, and we're finding that ship owners and operators are having a lot of trouble achieving good inspection results. The new database has over 550 questions, and each checklist is algorithmically generated based on a number of factors, kind of including details that the vessels input on the PIQ, details in the HVPQ, the vessel's history, the operator's history, and amongst other various factors. Therefore, every checklist is now unique, which is the main difference from the traditional SIRE inspection, and that's really what makes preparing for any one given inspection very difficult for owners and managers.
Okay, so absolutely a big issue that operators are facing. And I know you've done gap analysis of those new SIRE 2.0 questions. So can you give us a bit more info on how that's constructed?
Yeah, absolutely. So as just mentioned, the new database contains a total of more than 550 questions, and this is made up of core questions which are asked during every inspection. A lot of these mainly are requiring the surveyor kind of to confirm and corroborate that the condition of various areas of the vessel are in line with the photos that the vessel's uploaded to the OCIMF portal. Secondly, they've introduced rotational questions, which are asked, kind of as the name suggests, on a rotating basis, and all of them are covered. All of the rotating questions are covered over a number of inspections. They also have conditional questions, which are asked based on the answers provided in the PIQ, vessel's history, etc., as I mentioned before. For example, if a vessel states in the PIQ that an engineering audit report is available on board, this might then generate a question in the checklist which asks the surveyor to confirm that the report is actually available on board. And lastly, campaign questions. These are based on industry trends, kind of similar in idea to port state control concentrated inspection campaigns. They've also restructured the way that observations and deficiencies are grouped. They're now being grouped under 3 main headings. Firstly, hardware related things such as vessel components, i.e. machinery, equipment, structure and outfitting. Secondly, vessel processes related to vessel management, safety management and onboard procedures. And lastly, the human factor related to the crew's competency, performing influencing factors. They refer to that as the PIFs. And another kind of main difference that we've found in the reports that we've reviewed, we've seen that multiple observations are now being recorded under one question. This is kind of, again, differs quite greatly from the original SIRE inspection scope. Like, for example, we've reviewed a report where an observation was raised due to the emergency fire pump being out of order, which naturally would be covered under the hardware category. However, at the same time, one crew member was found to be unaware of the emergency fire pump starting procedures, which was covered under the human factor. So they've essentially received 2 observations under one question. And that's what we found, that the total number of observations now being received by vessels is going up quite drastically in general.
Okay, thanks, Scott. And I'll open this up to both of you, but how long do official SIRE 2.0 inspections take? And one of the questions I want to add here is, how effective do you think this new system has been so far?
I'll leave this up to Scott. I think he can. I think he's doing well, so you can carry on.
Cheers, John. Thanks very much. So, typically, an official SIRE 2.0 inspection covers anywhere in the region of like 90 to 100 questions on board from what we've seen, typically being achieved in a kind of 10 to 12 hour inspection window. With our pre-SIRE product, here at Idwal, we are trying to aim to cover roughly 140 to 160 questions in that same time frame. Since the introduction of 2.0, we are seeing more and more vessels, as I mentioned in the previous question, we're seeing more and more vessels receiving a large number of observations during these 2.0 inspections, and therefore the market demand for a pre-inspection service is growing. We've had numerous clients before we implemented and released this product in the market. We had numerous clients coming to us and asking, is there something you can offer to help us improve our SIRE performance? Again, prior to SIRE 2.0 being introduced, a vessel receiving 10 to 15 observations, this was almost unheard of, and quite frankly, absolutely catastrophic result. However, as I said, we're now seeing more and more vessels receiving a total number of observations in this range, and it's still somewhat unclear to us how oil majors and charterers have adapted and are reacting their expectations based on the number of observations that vessels are now receiving.
Yep.
The last point probably worth mentioning is that SIRE 2.0 it does provide extensive surveyor guidance notes that detail various industry standards, guidelines, and best working practices, along with the grounds for the surveyor to raise a negative observation. However, various questions, like especially from my gap analysis that I carried out, a lot of the questions are left quite open-ended, they're quite subjective, and there is scope there where it's kind of left down to the surveyor's interpretation. From what we've seen, and like I say, we're now into the hundreds of SIRE 2.0 reports that we've reviewed internally here. There does seem to be quite a lot of surveyor manipulation in play, kind of whereby they seem to be adjusting their findings and observations to fit the most applicable question, if that makes sense. Even if that specific finding falls out with the scope of SIRE 2.0. Again, just going back to one of my previous points, where when there's scope for the surveyor to kind of manipulate answers, again adds to the unpredictability, and another reason why the inspections are very difficult for managers and owners to prepare for.
Okay, and how then do you ensure that crew members are adequately prepared for a siren inspection? And again, if I could add on to that, what are the biggest risks for vessel operators if they fail a siren inspection?
Probably the best idea is to address the second point first. I think that's probably the most pressing matter. So yeah, the SIRE observations directly impact a vessel's tradability and its chartering prospects. Obviously, in severe cases, this could even lead to refusal of the vessel by certain oil majors and charterers, and therefore result in a loss of business for the owner. Really, the adverse and potentially long-lasting impact of a poor SIRE inspection, it really can't be overstated, to be honest. Especially now that SIRE 2.0 has put even more of an emphasis on the vessel and operator's previous SIRE performance and their operational history.
Yeah.
Idwal pre-SIRE inspections have been designed to kind of hopefully alleviate a lot of the newly introduced unpredictability that the new scopes introduced, and with the intention of allowing the vessel, with our assistance obviously, to identify, prepare and rectify any of these issues in advance of an official SIRE inspection, with obviously the added benefit as educating and familiarising the vessel's crew with the new requirements and scope, which will hopefully have the intention of improving the performance going forward. Also, with our pre-SIRE inspection, we always make the vessel's crew aware that this isn't an official SIRE inspection, just to be clear. Yeah. We're only going on board to help them identify potential observations and work with them in whatever way we can. to help them manage and rectify any issues prior to an official inspection, as I say. Therefore, like when we initially started scoping this product and looking into the viability of it, we anticipated that we'd receive good levels of cooperation from the crews, and so far from doing these inspections for existing clients, we are finding that to be the case.
Fantastic.
Thankfully. So it's probably just also worth briefly highlighting that with our pre-SIRE inspection, any observations that we identify during an inspection won't be shared or distributed beyond the knowledge of, obviously, the attending surveyor, our internal team here at Idwal, the vessel staff, and the vessel owner or operator, or the commissioner of the report, if that's somebody different. Just for complete transparency, we have an internal team here at Idwal, as John mentioned in his introduction, made up of 15 ex-seafarers, and it's our job to scrutinise and QC every report and product that our surveyors submit before we forward them on onto the client.
Thanks, Scott. Some really useful information there. So moving to you, John, this question actually came from a client, ship operated in Norway. How can pre-SIRE inspections help reduce the risk of vessel detention or commercial penalties? And what are the key areas of focus?
Thanks, Paul. And I'll try and speak as clearly as I can. I know me and Scott must be quite difficult to understand. I think
Goose in a glass region.
I think Idwal's aim with the pre-SIRE 2.0 product is to enhance the vessel's chartering prospects by proactively addressing some of the risk factors that I think the shipping industry is guilty at times of being very reactive and only improving once they've been found to be deficient. And with a pre-SIRE inspection, you're identifying and addressing these issues prior to the actual vetting inspection being carried out, and therefore reducing the chance of any issues arising with charters and also with port states control as well. Many of the SIRE 2.0 questions are strongly linked to vessel safety and SMS, etc., and therefore carrying out a pre-SIRE inspection with Idwal ensures not only compliance with SIRE 2.0, but also has the added benefit of covering various other industry standards as well. And this, of course, helps to reduce the chance of issues arising as a result of port state control inspections, as well as other types of inspections also. I mean, one of our main benefits is that many of the surveyors in our network are fully trained, are fully competent and conversant with SIRE 2.0 as well as other industry standards. And I think with our SIRE 2.0 products, like with many of our products, we always give our surveyors the option to provide additional details and observations that don't fall within the scope of SIRE 2.0 or that inspection. So we ensure that we're always adding value to the client.
Fantastic. And what are some of the common deficiencies found during these inspections?
Oh, well, looking into this before, and based on the SIRE, the pre-SIRE 2.0 inspections that we've done so far, the most common observations so far seem to be with defective machinery and equipment, lack of maintenance on deck, mainly corrosion and wastage of fittings, but also SMS related, such as absence of related documentation or incomplete or incorrect records, like, for example, the absence of comprehensive engineering audits or dynamic navigational audit reports. We also commonly see things like in the navigational audits, which are required by TMSA, not having the qualifications of the company assessor or a representative stated in the report. That's one which we're seeing pretty often.
Okay, thanks, John. And so pivoting away from like the condition there, moving on to like the evolving industry regulations we have, how should ship owners adapt their maintenance and compliance strategies?
Uh, we'd always recommend the clients firstly understand and fully familiarise themselves um, with the relevant requirements, and not just themselves, also the crews on board the ship, the requirements applicable to their ships and to their fleet. This will obviously help to ensure that the inspections that ID will carry out will satisfy most, if not all, of the needs of the client. Um, Secondly, we encourage and assist clients to always aim to achieve beyond compliance and implement a culture of early identification and continuous improvements. Going back to what I said earlier about the industry movements being more proactive.
Yeah.
This is an ethos that we also adopt internally here at Idwal, and it's one of our main goals at Idwal to assist our clients in doing the same in whatever way that we can. I think in our experience, we found that companies that adopt a beyond compliance approach often usually get like a step ahead of the game, shall we say, and they often get less issues complying with stricter requirements when they are finally introduced and come into play.
Okay, and what do you mean there by beyond compliance? And to tack on to that, you know, what is the best way of achieving that in relation to SIRE 2.0?
Uh, Beyond compliance generally involves incorporating industry best practices into your SMS, into your company processes, um, and I think that's both at a vessel and a company level. You know, obviously introducing it at a company level and then ensuring that it's implemented on all the vessels throughout your fleet. In terms of the tanker market, a number of best practices are generally be found via enrolment onto the tanker management self-assessments, as I mentioned earlier, um, TMSA, and also adopting transferable practices from other sectors within the maritime industry as well. I mean, the maritime industry, it's always evolving, and we believe that it's imperative that all parties can adapt um, quickly, especially when the goalposts in this industry are constantly moving and shifting. It's essential that a company's processes are designed to be flexible and adaptable to account for how quickly things move.
Yeah, thanks, John. And again, some really good points there. And once again, back to you, Scott. Can you give a bit more info about how, you know, the technology that we use, the digital reporting, how that enhances the effectiveness of the pre-SIRE inspection, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So it probably at this point it's worth mentioning that our pre-SIRE 2.0 inspection is a new product, very much still in its infancy. And going forward, it may be subject to change based on client feedback, our internal processes, how they evolve around it. But I'll just give a bit of background into what our deliverable currently does include. We have developed an intuitive Excel checklist, which we've designed with built-in kind of filtering capabilities, conditional formatting applied, etc. Again, designed to easily identify deficiencies and areas of concern on board. That the questions have been worded in a way whereby the answer columns just filtered by no, and this will give you the full list of identified observations. Readers can also filter by the vessel area, which we've found with existing clients that, for example, technical superintendents versus marine superintendents find useful for quickly reviewing any areas of the vessel that are under their own supervision. Secondly, whilst we're on board, we instruct our surveyor to produce a preliminary observation list. This is left on board with the crew. It's also sent to us, and then we forward it onto the client directly following an inspection, with the intention of allowing the crew to initiate any rectifying actions straight away. Thirdly, post-inspection and as part of the technical review process that John's described briefly before, we produce a detailed observation list which gives an overview of the inspection, like a main summary sort of idea, where we get our surveyor to give his general impression of the vessel and the vessel management. And this also provides a more detailed description and a breakdown of all the identified observations. This also includes photographs as evidence where they might be applicable for any of the observations. This document has also been designed so that the vessel operator or manager can use it for defect management and closeout. And finally, we provide a SharePoint link, and this contains all the other inspection photos, documents. Again, noting that we always instruct the surveyor for any type of Idwal inspection. We instruct our surveyor to take as many photos as possible and to collect any documents that are relevant or necessary to support any of the observations.
Okay, and like you said there, with this theme of the difference of requirements being so vast from operator to operator, you know, what inspection formats can we offer to cover the scope of SIRE?
Yeah, so currently we have like 3 main inspection options that are designed. We've designed in terms of time frame and number of questions that can be conducted in a single day attendance. Option 1 would be we cover all the core questions, as I've described at the start of the podcast. We cover all core questions and all high priority rotational questions. These have been the rotational questions have been prioritised by our in-house technical team, and where time on board permits, we always aim to cover as many low and medium priority questions as well, to cover essentially to cover as much of the scope as possible. Option 2 is where all core questions are covered during every inspection, and the rotational questions, we've split them across 3 inspections. This obviously requires the client to commit to 3 inspections of the same vessel to cover the full scope. However, with an existing client, we've had a lot of initial success and positive feedback using this method, as what we found is it allows us more time to investigate and dive deeper into each question, ensuring a more kind of comprehensive assessment and ensuring full compliance. Option 3 would be the client can specify focus areas where they might know or suspect that they have shortcomings. Could be based on previous SIRE performance or previous port state control deficiencies. For example, a client might come to us and say, can you focus on the engine room, which we know to be in poor condition? Our checklist can be easily redacted to cover just these areas. Again, this would put, similar to option 2, it permits a greater amount of time to be spent per question, especially in areas that are known to be deficient. But obviously, this doesn't cover the full SIRE 2.0 scope. It would only cover those focus areas, as we call them. Yep. Alternatively, if the client came to us, we do have the option of covering the full scope. However, we've not done that yet, but we do anticipate that would require at least 3 days on board, maybe more, 3 or 4 days. We assume to be in that sort of range. I think that's pretty much it. Probably finally, it's worth mentioning that last year we introduced the Idwal ID platform to the market. It's a portal-based system. It's got built-in defect management, vessel benchmarking capabilities. This doesn't currently support our pre-SIRE product, but this is something we're actively working on and do plan for integration in the future. In the interim, following a pre-SIRE inspection, it might be that we recommend for a client to carry out a full ID condition inspection, which is part of an ID subscription service, which does currently support defect management and vessel benchmarking. The benchmarking is carried out against the data we've gathered from well over 10,000 vessel inspections, and our existing ID subscribers. Kind of their routine feedback is that ID is the best online vessel management tool available on the market. So we do encourage clients to use that service as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely, and echoing that, and many of the users who have asked questions today want with Idwal ID, one of the best things that they're finding with is that deficiency management, being able to report the deficiencies and also manage them, rectify them, etc., and all of that to be delivered to their alerts and stuff to the people who are managing these ships. It's
Exactly.
truly valuable. So yeah, thanks, Scott. So back to you, John, and a question
Yep.
from a client in Singapore. So how early, I think this is our last question actually, how early should a vessel undergo a pre-SIRE inspection before an official audit? And again, me shamelessly tacking onto that, what is one piece of advice you give to a ship operator, specifically an operator who wants to maintain a high inspection success rate?
I mean, we'd always recommend conducting a pre-vetting inspection as early as reasonable and as far in advance of any official inspection as possible. This then allows ample time to address any of the identified deficiencies before the official vetting inspection takes place. That way, then, if any spares are required to rectify any of the identified issues, it also gives time for these to be ordered and delivered to the ship. In terms of advice, um, I mean, we similar to what I said earlier, we'd advise being fully conversant with the new SIRE 2.0 requirements and question scope, and actually to utilise Idwal's pre-SIRE 2.0 inspection service in order to identify and address potential deficiencies and observations in advance. I think also, whilst getting the crew to inspect vessels themselves is always advisable, it can also lead to bias as well. And getting an independent third-party set of eyes on the vessel who carry out these inspections often and get the benefit of seeing a wider range of defects and understanding what common defects are is a much better and much safer solution. I think it's also it's also worth reiterating again that at Idwal we invested great time. We invest great time and resource into our surveying network, and we're very proud of the network that we've built. And any surveyor that we assign to conduct a pre-SIRE inspection will have been thoroughly vetted, assessed to guarantee that they're suitable to carry out that inspection type, not only based on experience, but also based on the performance as well, which is all very closely monitored by our dedicated surveyor management team here. So, and as we've said before throughout this podcast, we also operate slightly differently and uniquely from other third-party inspection companies. And as Scott mentioned earlier, and as I've mentioned also, we have this dedicated in-house technical team made up of these ex-seafarers, all from different backgrounds and industry sectors, who scrutinise and thoroughly quality control every report that is produced here, and that includes our SIRE 2.0 products as well. I think it's due to this process that the clients can always rest assured that we're endeavouring to give them the best possible chance of catching any defects or observations on their ships that may otherwise go unnoticed until the official SIRE inspection takes place.
Thanks, John. And we've actually just had one final question come in just in the nick of time. I'll put this to you, Scott, then. What steps are we, Idwal, taking to stay ahead in the inspection and compliance sector? It's all good as having this platform, etc., but how we take it, how are we staying ahead?
So happy to take that one. So yeah, we are very proud at Idwal to be the industry leader in third-party vessel inspections. And as we seem to be often, we're one of the first companies to offer a product like this SIRE 2.0 pre-inspection to the market. Part of my role here at Idwal is dedicated to monitoring industry trends, requirement and legislation changes, market demands, and track emerging technologies in the shipping industry. A great deal of my time here, my day-to-day as such, is ensuring that our main Idwal checklist remains relevant and up to date, and maintaining what we believe and what clients tell us is reputable and deserved place as the best and most comprehensive condition inspection report available in the third-party market. We also, and John mentioned this previously as well, we're constantly fine-tuning our industry-renowned Idwal grade. For anybody who doesn't know what this is, it's a comprehensive and objective assessment of the condition of a vessel, and also has a focus on the vessel management. We generate the Idwal grade through over 500 data points that are gathered every inspection, and we consider the Idwal grade to be like our main kind of USP. Probably worth mentioning that the Idwal grade isn't yet tied in to pre-SIRE 2.0 inspections. Again, this is something that we might look to integrate in future. Yep. We also provide an extensive range of other kind of marine project management services, and an endlessly varying list of other products, such as engineering navigation audits. We've done shipyard inspections, we've done terminal inspections, we've done all sorts of projects in the background. And I think probably one of the most important points to put an emphasis on is that a lot of the products we create can be and have been tailored and made bespoke to specific clients' requests and requirements. Yep. I think what most people don't realise is the depth of what goes on behind the scenes here at Idwal. We have in-house teams such as technical development, surveyor management, product, data, software development, the list goes on. And this is one of the things that make us unique and stand out from the competition. We as far as we can, we keep everything in-house. Just to reiterate, I think the main goal here at Idwal is always ensuring that we offer a wide range, or we can offer a wide range of flexible and adaptable products to suit individual client needs, and at the same time maintain our core products such as our condition inspection, our ID platform, our sales and purchase inspections. Maintaining those products at the top of the market is one of our greatest goals here.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Amazing. Thanks, Scott. So I do believe I've now got to the bottom of my list. So a huge thank you to everyone for listening, and we really hope you found this useful. And of course, if you have any questions about this topic, this subject, please feel free to reach out. We'll make sure that when we send this out, their LinkedIn or email, that will include all of the details there. As we mentioned, Idwal do conduct pre-SIRE and other pre-vetting inspections worldwide. So again, get in touch with any of us or directly to discuss your requirements or any urgent inspection needs. We will be back next month with brand new guests in a special episode on MO32. So any of our listeners that operate or plan to operate in Australia should make sure they tune in. And finally, a huge thank you to John and Scott to both shedding a really good detailed light on all things SIRE. You know, there's a lot of really good points in there. So we hope to have you on the podcast again soon. And of course, the rest of you, we'll see you next time. Thank you all.
Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul. Bye-bye.